Israel is grappling with a mounting health and security anxiety as fears intensify that the war with Iran could reignite after high-stakes talks collapsed, reigniting uncertainty just days into a fragile pause in hostilities. Fresh figures released by Israel's health ministry underscore the scale of the medical toll from weeks of fighting. Since the conflict began on February 28, a total of 7,693 Israelis have been admitted to hospitals, according to the ministry's cumulative count. While most of those patients have since been discharged, the ministry says 104 people remain hospitalized and are still recovering from injuries linked to the war. The data offers a broad snapshot of the strain on Israel's emergency system and the lingering human consequences, even during a lull in direct combat. Reports citing Israeli coverage say the patients still hospitalized include people in a range of conditions from critical to relatively stable. The ministry's release, however, does not provide a detailed breakdown of what caused each injury, leaving unanswered how many were wounded by strikes or shrapnel and how many were harmed in secondary ways, such as falls or accidents while rushing to shelters. That gap matters because it shapes how the public understands the nature of the danger. In past conflicts, hospitals have treated not only those directly hit by weapons, but also people hurt during frantic evacuations, panic-driven traffic incidents, or medical episodes triggered by stress. Without a breakdown, the numbers convey the volume of suffering, but not the precise pattern of harm. Still, the headline figure is stark: thousands of admissions over roughly 40 days of war. And even with admissions slowing compared to the peak periods of bombardment, the ministry's current tally makes one thing clear. For many families, the conflict is not over simply because the skies are quieter. At the same time, Israel's defense establishment appears to be shifting back into a readiness posture, reflecting the belief that the pause may not hold. Multiple reports in Israeli media say the Israel Defense Forces have begun preparations for the possibility of renewed fighting with Iran, a process that includes tightening response timelines and reviewing operational gaps that could hinder rapid escalation if political leaders give the order. Those preparations are unfolding against the backdrop of diplomatic failure in Islamabad, where U.S. Iran talks ended without an agreement after roughly 21 hours of negotiations. The collapse has fueled speculation that a brief truce could give way to another round of strikes and counterstrikes, not only between Israel and Iran, but also involving U.S. forces in the region and the wider Gulf security picture. Israel's military posture, as described in the reporting, is not framed as theoretical planning. It is being treated as an active contingency, one where units must be ready to move quickly, where commanders must reduce friction points, and where intelligence collection must accelerate to support the rapid generation of targets. According to accounts of the military's internal directives, combat units have been told to remain on high alert and shorten response times. The effort, as described, is meant to ensure that if the political decision comes suddenly, the military does not lose time to logistical delays, incomplete planning, or outdated intelligence. Israeli military intelligence, the reporting says, is also accelerating work on its target bank, a list of sites inside Iran that could be struck if hostilities resume. In a conflict where timing and surprise can be decisive, a current and credible target list is essential. Priority sites reportedly include missile systems and launchers, along with the networks that keep them supplied, hidden, and operational. This kind of intelligence buildup is often as much about deterrence as it is about execution. By demonstrating that plans are ready and that targets can be struck quickly, Israel increases pressure on Iran and signals that any renewed escalation will meet immediate force. But it also means the margin for error can shrink dramatically. When plans are prepared and aircraft are ready, a single incident can trigger action faster than diplomacy can respond. There are also indications of intensified planning inside the Israeli Air Force. Reporting describes strike packages focused on long-range operations and complex raid sequences, including the possibility of multi-wave attacks and options ranging from precise pinpoint strikes to sustained air campaigns if the conflict expands. Long-range operations require more than aircraft and weapons. They require refueling plans, flight routing, electronic warfare coordination, and a real-time assessment of Iranian air defenses and missile response capabilities. In this environment, anxiety is no longer limited to borders and bases. It is increasingly a civilian condition, a pervasive sense that the next escalation could come with little warning. That sense of looming danger has been sharpened by Washington's messaging after the Islamabad talks collapsed. President Donald Trump announced a dramatic escalation in U.S. pressure on Iran, declaring that the United States would move to impose a naval blockade tied to the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most strategically vital waterways on Earth and a critical artery for global energy shipments. In remarks circulated widely, he framed the blockade as an immediate step and presented Iran as severely weakened. He said, "I would say it's holding well." Then, describing Iran's military losses in sweeping terms, he said, their military is destroyed, their whole navy is underwater. He continued with an even more specific claim. You know that 158 ships are gone, their navy's gone. He described a clear timetable for the action at sea, saying, as you know, at 10:00 tomorrow, we have a blockade going into effect. That'll be 10:00 tomorrow. The remarks suggested urgency and inevitability, language that can steady allies who want firmness, while also raising alarm in a region where misunderstandings and miscalculations have repeatedly spiraled into conflict. In the same stretch of remarks, he also argued that other nations were working to prevent Iran from selling oil, framing that as a form of coordinated economic pressure designed to choke off revenue. He said other nations are working so that Iran will not be able to sell oil, and that would be very effective. He then turned to the movement of ships and oil flows, claiming vessels were heading toward U.S. areas to fill up and then carry oil elsewhere, and suggesting that some would avoid transiting Hormuz as a result of the blockade. He said there are many boats heading toward our country to fill up with oil and then go and take it, so they're not going to go through the Hormuz Strait. He presented U.S. domestic oil production as a cushion against any shock, pointing to expanded drilling. He said we have more oil because of drill, baby, drill. He cast Iran as desperate and cornered, describing the negotiations as an extended session that provided his team with clarity. He said we had a meeting that lasted 21 hours. We understand the situation better than anybody, and Iran's in very bad shape. And just so you understand, Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. And he drove the point home by repeating it. He said Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. He also dismissed the importance of whether talks resume, arguing that Iran's military capacity had been hollowed out. He said, I don't know. I don't care if they come back or not. If they don't come back, I'm fine. Their military is gone. Their missiles are largely depleted. In his telling, Iran's ability to manufacture missiles and drones has also been severely degraded. He said the manufacturing capability for missiles and drones is largely defeated. He characterized U.S. restraint as deliberate, suggesting that the United States could have inflicted greater infrastructure destruction, but chose not to. He also described one specific action as retaliation for a broken promise, connecting it to the Strait of Hormuz. He said, we've been very nice. We haven't ripped down too many bridges. We did one only because they broke their word. They broke their promise. And he asserted that Iran had promised to open the strait but failed to do so. He said, remember, their promise was that they were going to open the Hormuz Strait. They didn't do it. They lied. The president's remarks then veered into domestic and cultural territory, including sharp criticism of Pope Leo Shiv, the current pontiff, using language that signaled frustration not just with Iran, but with voices he appeared to view as insufficiently aligned with his approach. He said, I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. He's a very liberal person. He continued by tying that criticism to his broader themes on crime and national security. He said he's a man that doesn't believe in stopping crime. He's a man that doesn't think that we should be toying with a country that wants a nuclear weapon so they can blow up the world. I'm not a fan of Pope Leo. Those words landed in an already combustible environment where religious authority, geopolitics, and domestic politics often collide in unpredictable ways. Meanwhile, the maritime threat picture has been darkening. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has issued warnings that any U.S. warship approaching Iranian waters could face a severe response, statements that raise the risk that a blockade could become a trigger point for direct confrontation in the Gulf. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a symbolic choke point. It is a real-world lever that can move energy markets, shipping insurance costs, and global political pressure in a matter of hours. Any sustained disruption there can ripple into inflation, fuel shortages, and economic volatility far beyond the Middle East, and those consequences can shape diplomatic decisions as much as battlefield developments do. Back in Israel, the combination of hospital numbers and war planning is fueling a public sense of déjà vu, the feeling that a pause is simply the breath before the next sprint. The health ministry's data showing thousands admitted since late February has become a kind of ledger of the conflict's reach. It contains soldiers and civilians together, underlining that the front line in this kind of war often extends deep into everyday life. Hospitals, meanwhile, operate as both treatment centers and warning systems. Every new wave of admissions is a signal to the public about the conflict's intensity, and every patient still hospitalized is a reminder that recovery is slow, even when the immediate danger fades. The absence of detailed causes in the government's medical breakdown adds another layer of unease. In a moment of uncertainty, people look for clarity. Were these injuries mostly from direct strikes? Were they from panic and displacement? Were some from unrelated incidents that happened during alerts? Without that clarity, the public fills in the blanks, and fear can travel faster than facts. Now, with diplomacy stalled, Israel's military on heightened readiness, and the United States moving toward a naval blockade timetable, the region is once again facing the possibility that war decisions will be made not in conference rooms, but in the split-second calculus of commanders, responding to threats at sea, in the air, or along borders. For families in Israel watching the hospital figures tick upward, and for communities in the Gulf watching warships reposition near narrow waters, the question is not simply whether the war might restart, it is how quickly a restart could happen and how much warning anyone would get before the next strike, the next siren, and the next surge of casualties. And for leaders on all sides, the challenge is brutal in its simplicity, whether to pull back from the edge while there is still room, or whether the momentum of fear, preparation, and retaliation will carry the region into another round that no one can easily control.